California remains the most blessed and often cursed place on earth. Profound natural beauty, prosperity, profound natural disasters, testing our spirit, testing our resources. I want to close with two things here. I was down in Belém in Brazil at COP30 recently. It was a climate conference. By the way, the US, nowhere to be found. We were a footnote. The United States was a footnote. China, close to 800 delegates. United States, not one, not even a note taker. I want to remind everybody, China today manufactures industrial policy, manufactures 70% of the world's electric vehicles. They're flooding the global market with increasingly high quality and inexpensive cars. And I just want to say this clearly, so it explains a little bit about our rationale. This is not about green power. This is about economic power. They are dominating the space. They're locking in markets. They're locking in supply chains. They're locking their influence all across the globe. They're cleaning our clock. But in California, we're not bystanders. We've already seen 7 times more clean energy jobs than fossil fuel jobs in the state of California. And last year alone, the 4th largest economy in the world, using 100% clean energy, 4th largest economy in the world was run on 100% clean energy for at least a part of 9 out of 10 days. Think about that, it's unprecedented. Unprecedented. Almost 9 out of 10 days. 2/3 today, 2/3 of our energy comes from clean sources. Solar, hydro, comes from wind, and geothermal comes from nuclear power. And just last year, California finally ended its use of any coal-fired power. None. We're in the how business. We're proud to be in the how business, and we understand something that increasingly people are starting to understand, at least people that are open to argument, interested in evidence. That climate risk is financial risk. That climate risk is becoming uninsurable. That's why in California we're making our homes and communities more resilient to heat and fire. That's why we're working with our insurance commissioner. A lot of work to do here. Talk about grace. Working with our insurance commissioner to protect homeowners from unpredictable rate increases and cancellations. We became the first state, together, we became the first state in the country to require insurers to lower insurance for home hardening upgrades. That is not the case in any other state. And in the last few months, this is important, in the last few months, 6 insurance companies announced their commitment to remain in or expand coverage here in California. Again, a lot more work to do. That was important. That was an important milestone. You saw it, Farmers and Mercury and some of the AAA affiliates. Important milestone. We have more work to do. Fully implement the commitments we laid out in the sustainable insurance strategy, and more work to do to hold insurance companies accountable for meeting their obligation to insure in high-risk areas throughout the state of California. I want to end with this. I was down in LA yesterday, got back last night, and those insurance stories, they self-evidently, unsurprisingly, were front and center with those survivors that I met. And let me remind everybody, I think it's important. I want to remind everybody what happened a year ago. Put it in perspective. Between January 7th and January 22nd, 48,000 acres burned, the size of 3 Manhattans. 3. Communities torn asunder, Palisades, Altadena, Malibu, Pasadena's. Fires took the lives of 31 people. 31. Destroyed 16,000 structures. On the sober anniversary, it's not only right that we honor the lives lost, but we also honor the lives of some of the remarkable heroes and leaders, the first responders and firefighters that faced unimaginable conditions. Some of you were there. You saw it. 16,000 at peak, 16,000 personnel working in the arena, the theater of fires, 16 plus large-scale fires. Remarkable. It was a firestorm, I'll remind you, in the middle of winter. Hurricane force winds attached to a fire. What they did, I don't need to say it, you just demonstrated, it was miraculous, it was heroic. They battled these impossible conditions in the wind and in the dark, flying dangerous night missions over the firestorm. CAL FIRE, as you saw a moment ago, is in the audience, but you know who else was up there? And thank you for applauding them, the community groups and the business owners, and most importantly, can you just stand up? And I'd ask you all to stand up again. The survivors of the Eaton and Palisades fires. Would you all just stand up? And thank you for your courage. Thank you for your resiliency. Thank you for your strength. We haven't forgotten about you. We won't forget about you. We said we had your back, and we mean it. Thank you. Thank you. It's always difficult sometimes to talk about this because we were in roundtables, Jen, members of my administration yesterday talking to survivors, and it's cold comfort when you say we have the fastest debris removal in U.S. history, which is true. Fact. We provided mortgage relief. You provided $2.5 billion of grants and funding. I've signed 27 executive orders. You've passed dozens and dozens of bills to reduce and remove, reduce time, reduce red tape to allow survivors to rebuild much more quickly. And it is true, at this time, 14,000 structures in the Paradise fire, there were only 385 permits, 16,000 structures. We've over 2,500 permits in LA, but it doesn't mean anything if you're not one of the beneficiaries of that. And so we recognize that it's not good enough, and it's not nearly good enough. And that's why we need to do more to turbocharge the efforts to rebuild these communities. And that's why I'll be asking you, and it's in the budget we'll provide tomorrow, to focus on a new rebuilding fund that will help close the gap. This is the biggest challenge, close the gap between insurance payouts and the cost of rebuilding. This will help get survivors back in their homes much, much faster. But I'd be remiss. Contrast these efforts with the President of the United States. Been a year. Contrast these efforts to Donald Trump's. His complete failure to act. He's even refusing to send a disaster recovery request to Congress of $33.9 billion. By the way, that request supported by every member of the California delegation. Every Democrat, every Republican. We lost someone I thought was a wonderful human being, Doug LaMalfa. I was engaging with him on water policy just last week. Doug had our back. Doug was there in the first round. Doug met with us. Doug said, we don't play politics with this. It's time for the President of the United States to act like the President of the United States, all the United States of America, to fulfill his promises that he made to deliver for the people of Los Angeles. It's time for the President of the United States to do his job, not turn his back on Americans that happen to live in the great state of California. He was there. We were there for you in Paradise. The United States of America. The United States of America. No doubt these are challenging times. It's not just because of the fires, not just because we get to the federalization of the National Guard or the assault on our democratic norms and institutions. And yet, I think it was one of our finest. Because hardship doesn't merely wound us, it reveals us.